Welcome back to the show. Today we will be reviewing Disney's Encanto. But before we get into the review, please consider this your spoiler warning because I will be talking spoilerish-ish. So, you've been warned. Now let's get on to the review. I thought the movie was cute. I thought it was enjoyable. While it was enjoyable, I did enjoy, for the most part, the musical numbers, even though two musical numbers, which I couldn't tell you the name of, seemed very clustered. It was one of those where two people, or in this case, these two animated characters were kind of singing at the same time to make it kind of like a harmony. There's a word for it, but it escapes me right now. And even though I was in a movie theater with the best, sound system they could get or that they have in these movie theaters, I couldn't understand anything. And dude, I like Miranda, Neil Manuel Miranda. I like him, but ever since Hamilton, he's been doing a lot of these, and you saw this a little bit in his, I can't remember the other movie, In the Heights, I think was one of the ones that he was also the music director. And when you have these duets, he overcomplicates them as far as I get that, or I should say, I get that right now he is a kind of a hot commodity, coming off of Hamilton, which is now what, 3 or 4 years ago from his success. But it seems that he's overdoing it in his brilliance. And I don't want to say I was going to say wannabe brilliance, but he is brilliant. I mean, he's cashing in right now, and I have nothing but respect for the hustle. But when some of these musical numbers, because he was in charge of the musical numbers for this movie, just seemed a little bit too complicated, a little bit too elaborate, where you lost what you were listening to. You were like, what was being said? And that's never a good thing when you are watching this movie. So we are basically following a family that has magical powers, and they're done because this happens because they had a tragic, or Abuelita had a tragic beginning when she loses her husband and she has 3 kids. And I'm assuming there was this whole thing, or not assuming, but the movie tells us that when he died, she wished that it wouldn't have happened. So they get like this Encanto, which is like enchanting or enchantment, is it in English? If I'm translating correctly. And some of the kids have super strength. Another one has the power to make grow beautiful flowers. We find out later one of them has the power of seeing into the future. And when we get in there, or when we first get introduced to the Madrigal family, we find out that Mirabel is the only one that doesn't have powers. And it seems that the movie tells us that, she's struggling with it, even though she is completely loves her family and will do anything for their family. And she is just trying to do the best that she can, just being a normal person around these amazing family members that she has, which is very relatable, I think, in these days and times when everyone wants to be amazing. And just being yourself and being okay with being yourself. Not saying that some people don't have any skills, but some people just don't excel in many things, or don't strive to be in the limelight. And I think Maribel showed a good example of, hey, just loving life, loving yourself, being a good support system for those around you, using words of encouragement, being an amazing friend, an amazing sister, an amazing ear and shoulder to lie on. I thought was a great message. And towards the end, we find out that because she is just a normal girl, but her power to always be positive, always try to be the glue of the family, to be the one that everyone can rely on, ultimately saves the Madrigal family. Now, again, I don't really break down too much of it because I don't want to spoil too much. So go out and check it out. I do recommend this movie. It was really enjoyable. The jokes that were being said, that we had like kind of like a 35% full theater. It wasn't packed by any means, but the jokes hit. There was not a bunch of crude jokes with Disney animation. It depends on what you're watching. Sometimes they do a little bit crude adult humor, but for the most part, they stuck pretty innocent. A lot of the characters are likable. I would say mostly all of them are likable except the Abuela. The Abuela is so mean, so evil in the way she treats Maribel. And then towards the end, she changes, right? She sees Maribel because at first she sees Maribel like a curse, like she is the reason that the Madrigal family is gonna lose their powers. And when there's this casita that has also powers, and when you watch it you'll get what I'm saying, but the little casita has powers, and then everything goes away. The casita falls apart, everyone loses their powers, and she blames Maribel. And I'm like, so within a minute she blames Maribel. Then after that, even though Maribel showed and was willing to lose her life to protect the candle's flame from going out, even though she did all this stuff, the abuela was still pissed off at her. And then a minute later, she realizes how special Maribel is and how wonderful she is. So I think that at least it was a strong script, but I think when they wrote this, they didn't know how to make the switch. So they just did like a 90-degree turn and said, oh, well, the abuela's mad in this instance, but then the abuela's going to realize how wonderful not having powers is the next. And you're like, wait, what? Why is this hard 90-degree turn? And that's all I got out of it after I was like watching it. I mean, it was an enjoyable movie, but after I saw it, I was like, well, what made the abuela switch? There was nothing there that made the abuela say, oh my God, I was wrong. It is what it is. But I am very pleased that there is more minority representation in Disney. It's a nice look for them. I thought, like I said, it was beautifully animated. There was not really any stereotypes to point out. They, even though the family is, I think, Colombian, they do draw upon a lot of different Latin and Mexican traditions and kind of unite them in one dish. Now in the real world, man, Colombians don't like to be called Mexicans, Cubans don't like to be called Mexicans, and Mexicans don't like to be called, there's inherent biases and racism between our own culture. But as far as aesthetically, with me watching the movie, I was glad that it incorporated a lot of different elements of the Hispanic Latin culture to make everyone see it more inclusive, to the point that even if you're a non-Hispanic or Latin American person, or just a Hispanic and Latin person, and if you're like a white or a black, you'll still enjoy it watching it because it wasn't too hard to digest. So for me, this movie was a B minus. The musical numbers and the fact that they made Abuela from the beginning so abrasive, and you'll know what I'm talking about because she just comes out as an, excuse my French, but a bitch. And everyone in the family calls her out on it, but she doesn't care. She's like the gatekeeper. She's like, oh, I'm the first one with the magic, so I gotta take care of it. And they didn't have to go that route, but there's not really like a villain in this. They make one of the uncles kind of like a villain, but then we find out that he just had the vision of the Madrigal family falling, and Abuela becomes that kind of a villain. So to have her as that, it was just a little bit lackluster, since there is no real true villain like you do in Frozen, or if you're doing Rapunzel or anything like that. Like, the abuela is meant to be a good soul and a nurturing soul, but they start her off so bad and so abrasive. You're like, ugh, it just kind of ruins it for it. I thought the pacing was good, but Just the other two kind of bring it down to a bleed. It's a middle of the road. Even though I talked about representation, the script was good pacing, but it's still very basic, very cookie cutter. And I thought they could have expanded a little bit more. They relied on that traditional, Disney humor as it would, and that's why it makes it a B minus. But anyways, those are just my thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. And like always, that's a wrap.